Hi everyone, my name is Cade. I'm the composer of a symphonic metal opera album called Valcata. I'd encourage you to check us out. We're on Spotify and Bandcamp, and our stuff is on YouTube. I'll leave some links down below. It's a super fun album with 8 lead singers and live strings and everything, so please check us out and follow us and let me know what you think. Moving on, this is a review of Nightwish's new single, Noise. Probably my favorite band. I've been super excited about hearing anything from their upcoming album. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this might be the longest time that they've taken to release music between albums, because Endless Form's Most Beautiful came out in 2015, which is, it's 5 years ago, and I think that's the longest they've ever taken to release something. I remember there being quite a distance between Dark Passion Play and Imaginarum, so that might be longer. In fact, I think it is longer. I think that was like 6 or 7 years. Anyway, so I was really excited to hear Noise. So I'll give my overall thoughts about it first, and then I'll go into more details about certain things. Overall, I think it's a really solid single. I think it shows a lot of signs of really good things to come. I think that maybe it does sound a little bit too similar in parts to some of their previous stuff. But really, I think that is the worst thing I can say about it. Many people have made this observation already, but like for example, the way it starts with the steady drum beat and the strings, it has a similar vibe to songs like Endless Form's Most Beautiful, the song from their previous album, and perhaps the beginning of Shudder Before the Beautiful, and perhaps Storytime. And it's this kind of like that's cool, but it's they've done that quite a bit over the past couple albums. It will be nice to see Tumas let go of that rhythm that he seems to be gravitating towards a lot recently. I don't know why. I mean, it's catchy and it certainly works every time, and I do like it. But, I guess when you're so excited to hear something new and you hear something that immediately it's like, wow, this sounds like Endless Forms Most Beautiful, the drums and the strings, and then in the next few bars it goes straight into the guitars. It's a similar formula. It's not a terrible crime, but just a little something that maybe from now on we could do without, Another thing I want to bring up is that I've seen people criticize this song because the synth riff sounds like the Game of Thrones intro. And while I can understand that, that's not something that really bothers me, because I actually don't think it's that similar. If you analyze the two songs and the two melodies, the melodies are very similar, but like Noise is in 4/4, and I think the Game of Thrones theme song is in 3/4, so it's a different rhythm entirely, and I think it's also in a different key, and Tumas like alternates the melody pretty quickly after the initial 2 repetitions. So when I first heard the song, I was looking, like, because I had heard that comment before I heard the song, and I was like, okay, like when I hear the song, I'm going to hear the dun dun da 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 dun da da da. Like, I thought I was expecting to hear that melody, but it's only the very minor intro, dun da 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 dun da da da. I do think he probably was influenced by Game of Thrones subconsciously, but again, I don't think this is a very serious criticism of the song. I am very happy with Floor's singing. I think she sounds really cool on the verses. It's a very unexpected, really deep, new voice that I haven't heard a lot from her before. She sounds very sinister, which is cool, which speaks to the theme of the song. It's a very angry song, a song full of, warning. I'm not going to go too into what the song is actually about, because I feel like a lot of people have covered that already. But speaking of that, I actually do like the references to Black Mirror, such as the lyric, shut up and dance, which is the name of a Black Mirror episode. That's actually maybe my favorite episode of Black Mirror. That one is so good. Lots of really unexpected moments. And I really like that throughout the song, it looks like they've listened to the fans, in that they want to hear Floor's abilities and full potential more on their songs. And Tumas actually said this in an interview recently. He was like, I realized that, and it's not just with Flora, but with Annette and Tarja also, I don't think I've ever really composed to help them realize their full potential. I always kind of put my songs first. So he said, this is an album for the singers. That's something I'm really happy about, and I can definitely hear it in this song because he explores her full range. I mean, that high note at the end of the chorus, when she says endless noise, is very high. I think it's a G, a high G, which is just one step below her famous high note in the live Ghost Love Score performance. So he's really challenging her here, and that's awesome because she can do it. And she obviously loves to do it. I do think that they're still mixing her vocals, maybe a little bit low on the mix. I did think that her vocals were mixed too low on Endless Form's Most Beautiful, and the overall mix on this song is much better. It has more of a punch, it doesn't sound as muddy. Her vocals are definitely clearer, and she definitely is more forward in the mix. But I think during the chorus, once the guys come in to harmonize with her, she does seem pushed far back a little too much, because you can tell that there's certain inflections and stuff that she's doing that are really interesting, but you can't really hear it because it's behind the wall of the chords and the harmonies of the other guys. So, she sounds awesome when she's doing the super high part at the end of the chorus, and she sounds awesome also in that really cool, creepy bit, the operatic part during the middle section, which I'm going to get to. Her operatic head voice was a little underused in Endless Form's Most Beautiful, and now her head voice is really at the forefront, and they're really making good use of it, because I believe on this album they didn't actually use live choirs or orchestra on the first disc. If that's true, that means that all of the string sounds and the choir sounds on this song are actually synthesized. I actually like that sound because it reminds me a little bit of the Wishmaster album and Oceanborn, where the strings were synthesized, and it created a really cool kind of retro echoey effect that, as opposed to sounding too cheesy, it actually lent itself to the imagination and the fantasy. It's a hard thing to describe, but I really like that retro nostalgic vibe. For example, in that little pre-chorus part that's super silent, and you just hear the orchestral synths do their thing, and Flora's doing her super silent vocals. I got goosebumps at that point. I loved it. So yeah, I'm into the decision to let the orchestra out of the first disc completely, because I actually think that in previous albums, relying on the orchestra too much might have hindered the songwriting and their explorations. So I'm excited especially about the rest of this first disc, because I think that they're going to come out with some really unexpected stuff now that they don't really have that full orchestra to rely on. But yeah, I love that they included her very direct and powerful operatic voice during the middle section, and they layered her vocals. So I believe that all of those vocals during the, face to face of the black mirror, or whatever the lyrics are, I really like that part. But I think that all of those vocals are actually her, layered multiple times, and it sounds super epic. It reminds me of certain parts, again, on the Wishmaster album. I hate going back to this, but on Phantasmic, there's so many cool choir parts in that song, but it's pretty much mostly Tarja's voice multiplied, and it's quite cool and creepy and quite bombastic and epic. So that was another reason why this song created some throwback feelings for me. As for the chorus itself, I like it a lot. Again, my only complaint is that I feel like Flora's vocals could have been turned up even more, but overall the chorus is really cool and epic and catchy, and sounds better every time I hear it. It really creates a nice, awesome explosion at the end with her vocals, and I really love that. I think really my favorite thing about this song is that whole middle section. I really like how they weren't afraid to make the first single one of the songs that was slightly longer, and it's obviously due to that mostly instrumental middle section where, it gets a little quiet, and initially with the piano and You know, Marco's bass is doing some really cool melodies. There's some choir going on, and then it kicks into some heaviness. Really cool rhythms with the lower end of the strings, sort of reminiscent of Master Passion Greed a little bit, going into something a little more intense. And just the progression of that whole section makes total sense to me. You know, there's nothing jarring about it, even though it changes up quite a bit. It just sounds great. The song finishes quite strong with Floor getting to show off. So yeah, overall, I'm super happy with this single. I guess what I like about this single is even though they are using some tried and true atmospheres and rhythms from previous songs, there's certainly a promise of a willingness to experiment, you know, even with those electronic vocals towards the end. And I'm super pumped to hear the song live, especially. Yeah, it's looking good, and I think this album is gonna be definitely one to remember. Those are all my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the song if you agree with me or disagree. I'm also happy to review or react to any other songs that you have in mind. I'll leave it at that. So again, please check out my own project, Valcata. I'll leave a link to every way that you can check us out in the description below. When the album drops, I'll definitely do a review of that too. So please subscribe and stay in touch and take care. Thanks. I'd really appreciate it if you could check us out and support us. That'd be great. My cat is making noise. Will you shut up, please? He just wants attention. His name is Schubert. He's a very cute kitty. Overall, I think it's a really solid single. I'm not being cruel. I have to let him wear himself out a little bit because this is just going to continue until I literally cuddle him for like 20 minutes. So I'll get to him after the review is done.